I walked into the office party, thinking it was just another dull night. Then my boss, in front of everyone, called me a nobody not once, but twice. The entire room went silent. It wasn't just humiliation, it was the final straw after years of being invisible. That night, everything I believed about loyalty shattered. I'm Daniel Carter. I'm 48, work in marketing in a mid-sized city in Ohio. I've spent 20 years climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize I was never really noticed. This story isn't about some big dramatic event from the outside, it's about the slow-burning poison of being invisible, betrayed, and then finally exploding. For years, I worked harder than anyone else. Early mornings, late nights, weekend calls, I did it all quietly. My wife, Lisa, knew the stress but didn't complain. We had 2 kids, a modest house, and a life I thought was solid. But beneath that surface, my world was crumbling in ways I never imagined. At work, my boss, Mark, played favorites. The golden kid was always his nephew, Jake, who seemed to get promotions and credit without lifting a finger. Everyone joked about nepotism, but I swallowed it. I told myself, keep your head down, play the game. I was patient. Then came that party. It was supposed to be a casual get-together at a local bar, nothing formal. But Mark had something else in mind. He started the night praising Jake loudly, the future of the company. He said. I smiled politely, but inside, something twisted. Later, Mark walked over to me with a smirk. Daniel, you're a nobody here, just background noise, he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. I froze, my face burned. People looked away uncomfortably. I didn't know what to say, but then, as if that wasn't enough, he repeated it. Seriously, you're a nobody. Laughter followed, a cold, mocking. I felt like I disappeared. Walking home that night was the worst walk of my life. My mind raced. How did I let this happen? Was all my effort meaningless? Was I really just invisible? When I got home, Lisa noticed immediately. She hugged me, but I could see the worry in her eyes. What happened? She asked softly. I couldn't speak. Instead, I stared at the floor, thinking about my choices. But the betrayal wasn't just from Mark. That same week, I found out Lisa had been texting another man, someone from her work. The shock hit me harder than Mark's words. It felt like the universe was crashing down at once. Days passed, and I was drowning in doubt and anger. I kept replaying that night, that moment of humiliation. But then I realized something. I didn't have to stay invisible. I could fight back. The first step was to confront Lisa. I demanded answers. She admitted the texts but claimed it was just a mistake, that she was lonely, stressed. I wanted to believe her. But trust was broken. At work, I started documenting everything, the favoritism, the insults, the blatant disregard for my efforts. I was done playing the silent victim. The tension grew. I could feel eyes on me, some sympathetic, others skeptical, but I was ready to change the game. I wasn't going to let Mark or anyone else treat me like a ghost anymore. Here's the question I want you to think about. If you were in my shoes, betrayed by your boss and your spouse in the same week, how would you react? Would you fight back or walk away broken? What's your breaking point? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Lisa breathe beside me, and wondering who she really was. Had I been blind all these years? Was I really that boring husband she pitied while texting someone else? Under our roof, by 4 a.m., I was wide awake and done playing the fool. My anger boiled so hard it felt like I was vibrating under my skin. I didn't explode, not yet. But something inside me snapped out at 7 a.m. I got up, dressed like usual, kissed my kids goodbye, and left the house with a calmness that felt unnatural. First stop, office. I wasn't going there to work. I walked in early, before most of the team arrived, and went straight to HR. I asked for a meeting, not a chat, a formal meeting. I brought my files, copies of emails, screenshots, performance reviews. Everything I had logged over the past year. I'd been documenting everything. For months, I just never had the guts to use it. But now I had fuel, favoritism, insults in public, unrecorded bonuses to a family member. I laid it all out. Watching the HR manager's face go pale, she gulped. I'll escalate this to senior leadership, she mumbled. Good, I said, looking her dead in the eye. Because if this stays internal, I have no problem going external. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I let the evidence speak. Cold, clean, calculated. That's when I realized rage doesn't always come with yelling. Sometimes, it's in silence and spreadsheets. And while I left her office, I noticed Jake arriving late again with a coffee in hand and that same arrogant smirk. I smiled back. Oh, buddy, enjoy it while it lasts. Back home, it got worse. Lisa was trying to act like nothing happened. She cleaned, cooked, asked me what I wanted for dinner. Was that guilt? or fear. I confronted her again. This time, I wasn't shaking. I held up her phone records. 312 texts in 2 weeks, I said. She looked like a deer in headlights. I told you, I just needed someone to talk to, she whispered. Then, why were half of those texts sent after midnight? I asked. You were in bed with me? What exactly were you talking about at 2:14 a.m.? She broke. Tears. Apologies. The usual performance. I almost felt something, not sympathy, but disgust. I had loved her. Built a life. Worked overtime so she could stay home for a few years when the kids were little. And this was what I got. I told her to sleep in the guest room. She resisted. I insisted. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, pouring myself a glass of whiskey and reviewing my next move. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Mark. You really went to HR. Wow, man. Thought you had thicker skin than that. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. What kind of sociopath humiliates someone and mocks them afterward? I typed back, you thought I was weak. You'll regret that. And I meant every word. I didn't stop there. I started digging. Every company document I had access to, I studied. Jake had been signing off on budget reports. Reports he wasn't qualified to even open, let alone submit. But someone approved them. Mark. Bingo. I printed what I could, uploaded the rest to a private folder, and made sure it was backed up 6 ways to Sunday. At home, Lisa was trying harder. Overcompensating, suggesting we take a trip, go to therapy. I told her, you want to fix this, start by telling me the truth. All of it. It was he. She hesitated, then whispered, Greg. Greg who? Greg Saunders, my manager. I burst out laughing. Bitter, sharp laughter. You cheated on me with your boss, I shouted. So now both of us have employers screwing us in different ways. How poetic. She tried to touch my arm. I stepped back. The irony was cruel. We were the perfect American couple on the outside, behind closed doors, just two exhausted strangers, getting emotionally mugged by people in power. By the end of the week, the HR investigation was underway. Quiet, but real. People started looking at me differently at work, with caution, even respect. Jake suddenly stopped smirking. Mark grew quiet. I wasn't done yet. I went home and told Lisa, we're taking a break. I'll sleep at a motel. For now, you tell the kids whatever lie you want. I'm done covering for you, she cried. I didn't. That night, lying on a stiff motel bed, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself, when did I become this version of me, the quiet guy everyone ignored? The husband who didn't see the betrayal coming, the employee mocked in front of his peers. Was I always this invisible, or did I let them blindfold me? But I had one more card to play. And it wasn't just about revenge, it was about redemption. You ever get to a point where you stop caring about consequences, where you've already lost so much, there's nothing left to lose? That's where I was. And in that space I found something terrifying. I found freedom. Tell me this, if your spouse betrayed you, and your boss publicly humiliated you in the same week, would you go nuck? Lear or walk away in silence? 2 days into my self-imposed exile at the motel, I hit rock bottom. I was eating stale vending machine pretzels for dinner and watching static on an ancient TV that didn't even get Netflix. I'd burned my marriage. My job was on a knife's edge. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or drive into the nearest lake. Then, just out of pure spite against the universe, I walked across the street to a grimy gas station. I had $20 in my pocket, and I figured, what the hell? I bought a bottle of Coke, some jerky, and on impulse, a scratch-off lottery ticket. Not the fancy ones, just one of those sad $5 7x lucky bucks tickets that no one ever wins. The guy behind the counter handed it to me with a deadpan face. Good luck, he said, clearly not meaning it. Back at the motel, I sat on the edge of the bed, scratched the ticket with a motel keycard, and nothing. Of course. But wait, bottom row, a weird symbol. 7x with $2,000 under it. I blinked, then scratched again. Another 7x. Another $2,000. Another. And another. I felt my pulse in my ears. By the time I was done scratching, I was holding a winning ticket worth $70,000. I sat there, stunned. No screaming. No jumping. Just silence. A burning, buzzing silence as the universe finally whispered, your move. The next morning, I cashed it in at the state lottery office. It was real. All of it. After taxes. It came to just under $52,000 more than I'd seen in my checking account in a decade. Suddenly, I wasn't just a guy getting kicked around anymore. I was a guy with options. And when you've got nothing to lose, options are power. First thing I did, I called my lawyer. Baron, I said, how fast can we draw up legal separation papers? Depends. You finally had enough? No. I said, I finally had fun. Next, work. I walked in like a man reborn. Shirt pressed, smile sharp, eyes clear. Mark saw me and actually flinched. Asked to speak with Jake. Alone. He looked confused but followed me into a conference room. I shut the door. You ever wonder how someone like you keeps getting promoted? I asked. Jake chuckled nervously. Because I'm good at my job. No, I said. Because people like your uncle protect you. And people like me let it happen. But that ends today. I slid a folder across the table. Budget manipulation. Signature mismatches. Falsified R's. Nailed approvals with timestamps that didn't match real meetings. I'd spent the past few days sharpening this blade to surgical precision. Jake's face strained. If I forward this to the executive board, I said, your career is over. But I'm not going to do that yet. He looked up, confused. I want you to do something for me, I said. Something public. Something humiliating. His jaw tightened. Like what? You'll find out, I said, standing up. But if you don't, this folder becomes a company-wide email. Capish? He nodded slowly, lips tight. Good talk. Back at home, Lisa begged me to come back. She even cooked dinner and dressed like it was our anniversary. The kids were confused. My daughter asked if mommy and daddy were friends again. That one hurt. I pulled Lisa aside. I won't drag the kids into this. But I'm not playing husband anymore. She teared up. Please, Daniel. I'm trying. I cut her off. Trying now, when it's convenient. When there's a chance I might leave with half the house. I paused. Then dropped the bomb. I won the lottery last week. Her face changed. Shock, confusion, hope, and then greed. You what? How much? Enough, I said. But you'll never see a dime. Daniel, come on. You came on. To Greg. Behind my back, in my house. Then I smiled. You don't get rewarded for betrayal. She tried to argue, cry, plead. But I was done. I left her standing in the kitchen, clutching the edge of the counter like it was keeping her from falling apart. 3 days later, I sent out a mass email to the entire company. Subject line. Truth you've been waiting for. Inside, I exposed it all. The nepotism, the corruption, Jake's forged reports, Mark's toxic favoritism. And I signed it, Daniel Carter. Former background noise. Then I attached my formal resignation letter. Effective immediately. Within hours, the place was on fire. Figuratively, daughter called. The board called. Even Mark emailed, saying, let's talk. I didn't answer, because I wasn't just walking away. I was walking up. So now I had cash, freedom, and a list of people who never thought I'd fight back. But I wasn't done, because revenge tastes better slow, and I was just getting started. Let me ask you this, if life suddenly handed you $70,000 while everything around you was burning, would you use it to escape? Or to make someone else burn too? Asterisk. I didn't blow the money. No flashy car, no tropical vacation, no insane shopping spree. You know what I bought? A laptop, a new phone, and 6 months of peace in a downtown loft with zero connection to my old life. Clean slate, fresh view, freedom, with a view of the skyline. But revenge, that was still very much under construction. I wasn't going to torch anyone's house. I wasn't that guy. I was going to torch reputations. 2 weeks after I sent the company-wide email, Mark was suspended. An investigation launched. HR turned on him so fast, you'd think they'd been waiting for it. Jake, he was demoted. Officially, it was for irregularities in reporting. And officially, he was a walking PR disaster. And you better believe I leaked a few juicy documents anonymously to a journalist friend I'd met years ago at a networking event. The headline: Midwest marketing firm faces internal scandal involving CEO's nephew. It went viral faster than the flu in an open plan office. Meanwhile, I started something else, my own business. Carter Strategy Co. No bells, no whistles, just clean, honest work. And clients started calling. A lot of them were people I'd helped back when I was just background noise. Turns out, when you're not being crushed under corporate egos, your talent actually gets noticed. Even started mentoring younger freelancers, the same way no one ever did for me. Lisa, meanwhile, was spiraling. She sent me emails, long ones, voicemails too, some apologizing, others laced with bitterness. One was just 2 minutes of her crying and whispering, you didn't have to destroy everything. But here's the truth. I didn't destroy it. She did. I just stopped pretending the wreckage was still a house. She tried to use the kids. That's when I drew the line. Joint custody. I told her through my lawyer. I'm not disappearing. But I'm not your cover story anymore, either. At first, she refused. Tried to threaten. Claimed I was unstable. Then I sent her a certified letter with a copy of the text logs. Highlighted sections. TIMESTMPS. Along with a reminder that Greg, her work crush, was still technically her supervisor, and that workplace affairs can be grounds for immediate termination under her company's ethics policy. She backed off. Funny how fast people get humble when you know where the landmines are buried. Then something truly unexpected happened. One night, around 11 p.m., I got a knock on my apartment door. It was Jake. Yeah, that Jake. He looked awful pale, thinner, twitchy, like someone had ripped the golden boy armor right off him. "What do you want?" I asked, not even pretending to be polite. He glanced over his shoulder. "I need to talk. Off the record." I let him in. Mostly because I was curious what rock bottom smelled like for a guy like him. He sat, eyes darting, and said, "They're going after me. Legally. Mark isn't protecting me anymore. He says I'm the scapegoat." I sipped my coffee. "Aren't you?" He looked up. "I didn't start it. He did. I just followed orders." I laughed. "Jake, you lied on federal documents. That's not following orders. That's called fraud." He rubbed his hands through his hair. "Look, I messed up, but I can give you something. Something big." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." He pulled out a flash drive. "There are emails from Mark about more than just me. Bonus payouts under fake names, fake vendors. There's one where he talks about funneling company money into a shell account." My brain went still. "You kept this?" I asked. "Insurance," he said. "Turns out I need it now more than ever." I leaned forward. "Why give it to me?" "Because you already burned your bridges. You've got nothing to lose." I'm still trying to stay out of prison." I took the drive, and suddenly, my quiet little revenge story became something bigger. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was criminal. Fraud, embezzlement, wire transfers across state lines. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up combing through every email, every attachment, dates, bank codes, fake contractor names that linked to Mark's old college roommate. It was a freaking blueprint. I knew I had two choices: take it to the press again, burn it all down, or call the feds. You tell me, what would you do? I stared at that flash drive like it was nuclear launch codes. It didn't just contain dirt on Mark. It held everything: years of shady transfers, backroom deals, falsified vendor payments, even receipts for company retreats that never happened. It was like someone had bundled up karma, wrapped it in USB plastic, and handed it to me with a smirk. Jake may have been an idiot, but he wasn't stupid. He knew this was his life raft, and he knew I was just pissed off enough to actually use it. But the question burned: was I ready to go full scorched earth? I mean, I already burned my job, my marriage, and whatever version of normal I used to have. Why not finish the bonfire? I didn't call a reporter. I didn't call a lawyer. I called the freaking FBI. Yes, that FBI, white collar crime division. I gave them my name. Told them I had credible evidence of corporate embezzlement involving millions of dollars. The guy on the phone asked, "Can you be available to speak with an agent this week?" I laughed. "Buddy, I've got nowhere better to be." 3 days later, I was sitting in a quiet federal building, across from a man in a sharp suit who looked like he hadn't blinked since 2009. He plugged in the flash drive. He read. He didn't smile, didn't frown, just read. Then he looked up. "This is significant." "No kidding," I said. "Want some popcorn with it? Would you be willing to provide a sworn statement?" "Want me to sing it too?" He didn't laugh. Here, FBI humor probably dies in training. They took it seriously, fast. Suddenly, I was a whistleblower, protected official, and deadly. And while the bureau started poking holes in Mark's empire, I started getting the calls. First, from Mark's lawyer, then from Mark himself. The voicemail: "Daniel, this is all a misunderstanding. Let's talk. We can fix this." Fix it. Like duct taping a dead horse. I didn't respond. So he got desperate. I got an email. "What do you want? Name it." And just like that, the man who once called me a nobody in front of the entire office was on his knees, and I wanted him to stay there. But here's where it got real. Fast. Lisa showed up at my apartment. Not text, not a call. She showed up. Eyes red, hair messy. The look of someone who'd hit a wall and kept driving. I heard. She said, about Mark, about the FBI, about all of it. I said nothing. She stepped closer. You did this." Her voice wasn't angry. It was something worse: impressed. Like I was some tragic anti-hero she never saw coming. "You always acted so passive," she whispered. "I never thought you had it in you." "Yeah," I said, cold. "Neither did I. You lit the match, Lisa. I just let it burn." She nodded, looked down, then asked, "What happens now?" I stared at her. "To him, he goes down. And US, I let out a sharp breath. There is no us, Lisa. You chose Greg. You gambled our family on a mid-level manager with a Bluetooth headset. And you lost. But you're different now, she said. You're stronger. No, I said, stepping back. I'm just finally awake. 2 weeks later, federal agents raided the company. Mark was arrested. Jake was called in for questioning. 3 board members resigned. The news broke. Not on some niche site, on national business media. CEO indicted for embezzlement scheme uncovered by former employee. My inbox exploded. Former coworkers, industry contacts, even college friends I hadn't heard from in years. They all said the same thing. You were the last guy we expected to take him down. Yeah, me too. And now I'm sitting in a coffee shop typing this out, sipping a latte paid for by my business, not Mark's stolen bonuses, not Lisa's guilt trips, mine. I see people come in, all dressed in their business casual masks, smiling like nothing's wrong. And I wonder how many of them are dying inside like I was. How many of them are just one insult away from flipping the entire board. Because you never really know the damage you've done until the quiet guy stops being quiet. 3 months later, I stood in front of a packed courtroom, watching Mark Reynolds, the same man who once laughed at me in front of my coworkers, sit there in a wrinkled suit, sweating bullets, while a federal prosecutor laid out every dirty secret he'd ever buried. His smugness gone. His smirk evaporated. He looked like a deflated balloon, wheezing through the last gasp of power he'd ever hold. The prosecution presented the evidence, all of it, the fake vendors, the ghost retreats, the cash funneled to offshore accounts and names of his college buddies. One of those names, a dead man. You really can't make this stuff up. And when the prosecutor said my name thanks to whistleblower Daniel Carter, Mark didn't even look at me. That was the most satisfying part. Not the collapse, not the prison time, not even the guilty verdict that came down just 2 hours later. It was the fact that he couldn't look me in the eyes, because he knew. He called me a nobody. And that nobody just ended his legacy. After the trial, I walked out of the courthouse into a sea of cameras. I didn't stop for interviews, didn't pose, didn't gloat. I just smiled and walked away, because the real prize wasn't fame. It was freedom. Back home, things changed too. Lisa filed for divorce officially. I didn't contest it. We split custody of the kids. I rented a house nearby, a quiet place with a porch, some trees, and just enough space to breathe. She tried one last time, over coffee, said she saw the man I was becoming. I sipped my drink, stared out the window, and said, "You didn't want this version of me, Lisa. You just didn't expect him to win." Then I left her there, mid-sentence. For once, she was the one who didn't get the last word. As for Jake, funny story. He avoided jail time barely. He cooperated, turned over more evidence, and agreed to testify against Mark in exchange for immunity. Last I heard, he's working at a used car dealership in Indiana, selling lemons. How poetic. And me, I kept building. Carter Strategy Co. went from a solo hustle to a small firm in under 6 months. Clients came out of the woodwork, not because I had the flashiest ads, but because people knew I don't play games. People ask me now, do you regret anything? And the answer, hell yes. I regret waiting so damn long to realize I had power. I regret every time I kept my mouth shut in meetings, every fake smile I gave Mark. Every chance I gave Lisa to come clean. But most of all, I regret thinking that being good and being quiet were the same thing. They're not. Last week, I got a letter, certified, no return address. Inside, just a single sticky note. I was wrong. You were never a nobody. And no apology. No signature. Just that. I read it once. Then I fed it into my shredder while Sinatra played in the background, because some ghosts don't deserve closure. They deserve to disappear quietly. So here I am. Not rich, not famous. But free and dangerous in a way I never know I could be, because once you've lost everything and build it back with your bare hands, there's no one left to fear. Not bosses, not cheaters, not even the past. Only the future. And mine is wide open. Now I'll ask you this: if the people who broke you were finally powerless and the world was watching, would you offer them forgiveness? Or show them exactly how sharp your silence can be? Asterisk.
That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought? Or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.